Get ready to the countdown.
Hello, everybody.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
There we go.
Hello.
You
Hi.
guys are in for a treat today. You guys
Hopefully
are in
so.
for a treat. We have me, Spencer Tyler, and PJ Amber Sawyer, Ema Mellor. Can you help me with your last name? Why don't I know how
Mellor.
to Mellor? Is that right?
I'll say Mellor, but it is, if you want to be posh, Mellor. Yeah, Mellor.
And we have Chessa Manion and Sharon Tyson-Tovar, because she's married now, y'all. And we have Molly. And Molly, I don't know how to say your last name. I'm sorry.
It's pronounced Moldván, but I don't know if you can get the ah sound. So I don't know.
Okay. So the gang is all here today, and like I said, today we have a special treat. We are going over past history. We wanted to do a tribute, a nod to past activism and their efforts. Sometimes we kind of feel like, we're all at different levels of activism. Some of us are newer, some of us have been in the game for a lot longer. But we wanted to pay tribute to those who came before us. And sometimes as activists, you can kind of get lost. It can get lost that you haven't done this before, that there are other people who came before us. So we thought it would be cool to kind of go through some old clips. So we wanted you to kind of look at this as like you're sitting around the glass table and we're opening a big apostate family album.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Kat Cunningham who's saying hello. Hello, Kat.
Hi.
Hey.
She says we love you too. See, Michelle says hello, ladies.
Hi.
I don't know
Hi.
if Sabina is on the line. She said thank you for the invitation. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we got a lot to cover, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. What we're gonna kick it off with is some clips from a film that actually it's a nod in one of the a little earlier in our live show today. So it's from a film called Jeremiah Films. I don't know if I saw this like in passing on YouTube before, but I had never watched it. So it was apparently a very big documentary because it was displayed in churches and in other big meeting areas. You'll see that in a newspaper they give a nod to this particular documentary when talking about former witnesses. And Kat Cunningham, yes, honey, go ahead and start that watch party. Share the stream. As a matter of fact, right now, stop and share the stream in your group, share it on your page. go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes, start a watch party on your page. I'll be there. We'll be there. We'll try to comment. We're not going to do a lot of commenting like we normally do throughout the broadcast so we can get through it, but we're going to save a lot of them for the end. So don't think we're ignoring you guys. All right, so to get started, our first group of clips actually gives a nod to ex-Jehovah Witnesses who use different mediums like television, radio broadcasts, and all different type of mediums back in the day to get the word out. But I wanted to start with this first clip, which is our only clip that we have of an ex-Jehovah Witness protest, and it's in the very beginning of the film. So let me see if I can pull that up for y'all.
What is happening here may be unique in American history. The marches you see are not protesting unfair labor practices or advocating a political cause. They are here to challenge the conscience of the wealthy and powerful Watchtower Society, better known to the public as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes, ooh, I love the music. Is so ominous in the beginning, isn't it?
It is.
So yes, so as you can see, they're there with their signs, and that is a very old school protest. They're outside of the I couldn't make it out. That building, was that the Watchtower? Was that in New York?
I think so.
Yeah.
Have we ever had protests in New York? I'm just wondering. Probably a lot of them take place there. Probably.
Yeah, they had one November 5th. Oh, I don't remember what year it was. But it was the vast apostate army. They had went up to Warwick and protested.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And then our next group of clips, actually, it's two clips. This actually kind of shows the activism that would take place on television programs. So let's get to it.
Former Jehovah's Witnesses disagree.
Growing up as a child within Jehovah's Witnesses, I always thought that this was God's clean organization. But when I got older, I found out that there were divorces, there was gross immorality within the congregations, and that we were actually no different than the ones we were condemning.
Side of the congregation, members would come to me with their problems, and I found out that even elders were involved sometimes in crooked business practices and in immorality. And I began to discover that we were really no better than the people on the outside of the organization.
When I left Bethel, it was hard for me to even share with my mother and father what was going on up there, the drunken parties that went on, and the homosexuality and things like this.
All right. So as you can see there, the activists are on TV, and they are speaking out against the Watchtower, and we do a lot of that. You know, in our part 2, we're going to go into more depth, but we do still speak out on TV. And I don't know what the last brother or the last ex-Jehovah Witness, I don't know if y'all caught that last part. He kind of gave us some tea about something going on up in Bethel. He said something about
that would make me want to go to Bethel.
Right. He said, right. But then their issues were a little bit different, because what she spoke out was about them, I guess, the teachings, them saying one thing and saying another. And I think she also mentioned, he mentioned the homosexuality. So I guess, crooked business practices. Now, apostates today do speak about crooked business practices of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, yeah.
As far as we can know, because a lot of their stuff is not public. I mean, we talk about, I didn't know they had invested in like tobacco companies and
actually they have investments in like a machine gun factory too.
Yeah.
It's something
and
else
Disney,
too.
Of all things.
Right. I couldn't even watch a Cinderella growing up or a Disney film, and they have stock in there. What I was told is that a lot of people former Jehovah Witnesses, but Jehovah Witnesses who died gave them those stocks, and they just never relinquished them or didn't say no to them.
Sure.
We will never know what they have stocks in. We really won't.
We should do a video on that.
Actually, we will, because they are, as any company, they are obliged to release their tax details on where their taxes go to and where their profits come from, and how their money is divided and distributed. So actually, we do know where they have stocks and money.
And I've researched what corporations and everything they're part of.
Yeah.
And there's loads. So
Yeah.
yeah, we
It's
should
on
do
the
a video on
IRS website.
Sorry, I'm trying to get somebody to get my dog. She having a little fit back there. She always does. Every time we go live, she. Okay, so we're gonna
So
move
do my
on.
rabbits. So.
Oh yeah, I don't know. They always want to be stars of the show, and then look, PJ's cat is just a cat back there, way back there. All right, so then the next. Oh, you want to say hi? Go ahead, come say hi since you want to say hi so bad, little pug. Say hi.
Aww, such a
Say
cute
hi.
Here are the rabbits.
Right, in the bunnies. Okay, so the next clip we're going to show is one of the most infamous apostate. As a matter of fact, Emma can attest to this. If you're in the groups with Jehovah's Witnesses and you mention this guy's name, they get super upset. But he's one of the most famous apostates. I say famous, infamous, however you want to say it, because he's one of he was a former governing body member. So take a look.
Crisis of Conscience was a member of the Watchtower Society's governing body for 9 of his 60 years as a Jehovah's Witness. His account of their secret sessions is revealing.
I must say that it was one of the most disillusioning experiences of my life. It came as a rude awakening to me to see what actually went on. I envisioned...
Crisis of...
Sorry, yeah, there we go. So not only was he a former governing body member, I think the big splash, if you read some of the papers surrounding it, there was even a Time magazine featuring Ray Franz. Isn't that Ray? Is it Ray Franz? What am I calling him?
Ray Franz, yeah.
Ray Franz. Where they talk about this big split in the Watchtower, but he wrote a book about it, and it's as a matter of fact, it's one of the most requested bought books by former Jehovah's Witnesses, and hopefully some Jehovah's Witnesses who are questioning that they actually reprinted it not too long ago, a couple years ago, and yeah, but you have to go to the right sites to buy it because there are some right sources. Oh yes, and the right sources, also the right sites, because it's such a good book that sometimes you can go on the site and people are price gouging for this book. Like the book, I think right before they reprinted it, you could see something upwards of like $100 American dollars for this book. And that book, if you see that price, it costs them that much. That's probably not where you should buy it from. Probably a more reputable sources or what have you.
Yeah.
Have everybody on the panel read it? I read bits and like major pieces of it, but I didn't read it cover to cover.
I wanna read it, but you see, the thing is, in Hungary we have no culture of Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, so I haven't ever seen it, and because I was a lonely apostate, all just minding my own business until last year, because I joined the online ExJW community like last year. Like that's when I entered Facebook groups. That's when I reached out actively to other ExJWs online. Until then, I was just like, you know what, fine. But then I realized others might need help too. So
yeah.
And so I haven't read it yet, but I so desperately want to, because I'm just, I'm an avid reader and I'm fascinated by the bravery and just everything that it must have taken for Ray Franz to do what he did. It's admirable.
I read up, actually I need to read the whole thing, but I read up until the part about when in the 1970s, I think it was, or was it the 60s, when they started making chain couples and what they were in the bedroom, and people just let their private lives in their bedrooms, and then once the society changed the rules, then no longer was it a private setting, then people were actually telling on each other and being disfellowshipped and excommunicated and shunned for, having intimacy with each other. And it was Ray Franz's book that really highlighted that. I was just like, because I was born in 1973. So, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, you just grow up thinking almost everything sexually is bad, even between couples. And so when I read that, I was just like floored, like, wow. And then it ruined a lot of marriages and people's lives, and they not once apologized.
I mean, if I can be blunt for a second, it's a personal anecdote, is that we in my congregation, we were taught that like any kind of fingering, oral sex, or anal sex is bad. So basically what you were left with is missionary without any foreplay. Now, I don't even know if that's pleasurable for any of the participants, but whatever says your boat, I guess.
Thank you, Molly.
But I heard that, I was trying to come up with a timeline. I think to what you were saying, Sharon, that Ray Franz, right after, like, they implemented this fellowship, and like either right before or right after they supposedly kicked him out, because it was in 85 that they started implementing the disfellowship and arrangement.
I don't recall.
I couldn't remember myself. So what's coming up next, here we have a clip from activists in the Ex-Jehovah Witness Christian community, and it is a older one of those clips. Let me see if I can get that really quick. Hang on one second here.
How many others are they wrong on?
And once again, Watchtower fact was revealed as nothing more than contrived fantasy.
Jehovah's Witnesses tried to get an explanation, but were unsuccessful. Apparently, for the governing body, nothing is so invisible as an unpleasant truth. Today, they are quick to deny their prophecies for the end of the world.
We do not.
And as you can see there's a little pearl line that goes across there. There was actually, if you go back and watch this documentary, I will link the documentary below. There is a couple who sits on a religiously themed program, and they are just blasting the Jehovah's Witnesses and talking about not necessarily doctrine, but just talking about their practices, much in the way that we do today. And I just thought to myself, how in the world were they able to pay for a TV spot just to do that? Because I don't think, like, nowadays you have to know somebody to know somebody to know somebody to get on TV or some type of specials or something like that. I don't know.
You gotta grease some palms, that's for sure.
So I'm just thinking, like, I just thought it was like super interesting that they were able to buy a TV spot. And I just wonder how the Watchtower responded to that. It was just so public, So our next clip is actually a group of clips. We're going to see activism, you might remind you of some of the activism that we actually do today in regards to shunning and suicide. You'll see that in the film that they interview a woman who was touched by suicide and her family as a result of shunning. So let's take a look.
The most intimidating devices used by the Watchtower Society is the threat of appearing before a judicial committee of elders. Public censure, even disfellowshipping, can be the sentence of this powerful court. The inflexibility of Watchtower policies has led to thousands of instances of mental distress, even suicide. Experienced the cold steel of Watchtower doctrine when her 16-year-old son Billy became romantically involved with a married Jehovah's Witness woman. Conscience-stricken, Billy turned to his parents.
He was very upset, extremely distraught. And he just didn't know what to do. And he was making statements like, I just can't go on. I just can't face it. And he was threatening to commit suicide. My husband and I talked with him for hours and did everything and said everything we knew to do to try to get him to realize that there's no situation too bad that you can't face. But things just were not getting any better. So as witnesses, you're taught not to seek the professional help of anyone. So we felt our hands were so tied we didn't know what to do. So at a loss. And instead the elder just said, the committee will deal with you tomorrow. He went out to my husband's truck where he kept a small amount of paraquat in a container. And Billy took the paraquat and he took one swallow of it. We had him in the hospital within 20 minutes. Exactly 3 weeks later, he died.
Yikes. Every time I see that clip, it just gets to me. So many of us have spoken out about suicide and how it's touched our lives because of the shunning policies of the of the Jehovah's Witnesses, rather. PJ and I actually get to that in our part 2. So that is a form of activism that mirrors today. And Emma, you you've been involved, or you and PJ have been involved in protests against shunning and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you, Sharon, Chessa, I'm sorry, I don't want to discount or leave you guys out too. I just remember PJ having this huge banner, so it's etched in my mind. But yeah, it's really sad how they were, whoever, I would like to, whoever did this documentary, I would love, so if you guys know the person who actually did this documentary, please leave it in the comments so that I can reach out to them, because it is really beautifully done. We only picked a few clips, but the entire documentary displays our activism on a level that I had not seen. So our next clip, it's actually our final clip, we're going to talk about the activism of the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's right, the Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not saying the actual. Yeah, they activists too, they protest too. Here's the clip.
Are the same thing.
Around the world, zealous witnesses paraded in front of churches on Sunday mornings, bearing placards with the slogan, "Religion is a snare and a racket." Keeping up with the times, the Society constructed its own radio station, and by 1933, there were 403 stations nationwide broadcasting.
So as you see there, I don't know if you guys were able to see the clip, but they're protesting. They have placards, they have signs, and if you go onto jw.org right now, they have an article there like, should we protest, or is protest bad? And they really talk about how, in a really bad light, how they feel about protesting. But as you can see there, they are protesting. I don't know what they want to call it, but signs picketing outside of a church look like a protest to me. So, and it also said, if you notice at the end of the clip, they used mediums. They had like 400 stations playing their, I don't know, I want to say propaganda over the airwaves. So,
oh dear Lord,
it kind of reminded me of JW, what they're doing now with the broadcast. And I have to admit, I haven't really watched a full broadcast from them. Now that they're using they got their own studio, y'all, with they I guess with their JW News and all of that. I haven't really watched the whole one. It's kind of triggering for me to hear them talk.
What's weird is that that studio will cost like $25 million.
Wow,
like
really?
Or am I mixing some numbers up? But I recall something with 25. Like I recall it being like $25 million, but don't quote me on that. Like double check it, because my memory is like not the most reliable, y'all. So don't drink the Kool-Aid on me saying that, please don't. But basically, it's supposed to be ready by 2026. 2025, 2026, but they are now saying that they are in the last days of the last days. So someone is lying.
Well, I mean, are they? Does anybody know if they're building the studio? Like, is this Bethlehem's, or are they hiring an outside company to do it?
Not
As
sure.
far as
Probably
I know,
free
it's all
labor.
inside work, from what I've heard. Yeah, because when they built Warwick, they used only inside help. They have the RBC, so I think if they need supplies or anything else, I don't think they'll be going outside of that. Most likely, anyway.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, in addition to protesting, which they don't call protesting, you guys might be familiar with a letter writing campaign, and I couldn't nail it down the year, but it was pretty recent, right? In recent history, where the Jehovah's Witnesses got together and wrote letters to Vladimir Putin, y'all, to get, because of the persecution and the crackdown on the Jehovah's Witnesses that they were doing here. And if you can remember, they were plastering some of the Jehovah's Witnesses, their faces on like news media, and at one point I remember crying because I felt bad, like, wow, that, why is this happening? And I still do, because I mean, nobody wants anybody to get physically hurt, but at the same time, it just seemed like the Jehovah's Witnesses were making this like this was a new thing. Would you say, like, in the groups, like they was just Emma, that they was just like so distraught? That I think they even have a group that says specifically for Russian. Somebody sent me a screenshot of a group for witnesses in Russia, where they talk about it.
They made such a huge thing out of it. Right.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting, and I just have to say it about Russia, is that what's interesting to me is when the Russian witnesses were at risk of being literally murdered and captured and jailed and all that, they did not think to do Zoom meetings or online meetings or small gatherings of a few witnesses in their houses. No. Go out in service, get arrested, get killed, be martyrs. And Telltale actually brought this point up in his video the other day, that like, why didn't they do that? And I was sitting here like, yeah, why didn't they?
Well, it just seems like to me, whether it's Bulgaria or way back in the day when when Hitler, during that time when they was writing letters, I guess, to Hitler, they seem to botch these type of responses to these type of things, to me. Because if you guys are listening, back in the day when there was a letter writing campaign from the higher ups and to some of the German leaders, including Adolf Hitler.
It was Rutherford.
Yeah, that infamous letter. A lot of people felt like he was sympathizing with what Hitler was doing. It was, that he was basically trying to make a deal. Would you say? I mean,
there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information on that time period in the 1973 yearbook.
Right.
I found a lot of information in that one.
And believe it or not, back in the day, they were a little bit more, if you read those publications, I don't know if it's newer people watching, they were a little bit more vocal and not upfront, but vocal about why they would not deal with somebody. I think they even name dropped somebody from the German Bethel as to the reason to make I'll let you read it. As a matter of fact, I'll link it below. So, hey, Anthony. We have Anthony Wilson from YouTube.
Hey.
Dr. Adams from YouTube. He said, your religion is a racket, our religion is a tennis ball. Thank you for everybody in Facebook saying hello. We say hello. Okay. So, speaking of that, you thinking it's brand new, we were able to dig up an article. This is, actually, is it this one here? No, actually, that's not it. Sorry, y'all. This one here, where back in the 80s, the Russians were cracking down on the witnesses, and they wrote a letter even then They said it was a total over a period of 9 months by a total of 462,936 of Jehovah's Witnesses meeting in 199 assemblies throughout the world that they adopted a resolution and then sent a composite petition on one letter to the Soviet Union asking that 7,000 Jehovah's Witnesses that were in slave camps at the time be released. So they're writing letter I know they want to say on one hand that protesting is bad or that it's ineffective. Maybe because a lot of it is because we're doing it and they don't want activists outside their doors protesting. But on the other hand, they involve themselves in their own protests and their own campaigns.
Yeah, even when the Child Victims Act was being passed last August, like last late summer, they were doing like letter campaign to the Supreme Court to appeal so that they don't have to overturn their blue envelopes. So it's nothing new. They always been political. It's just they became more silent about it after they got fucked by Hitler.
Right. And so we're going to move on to our section. We were able to dig up some old newspaper articles. This one here is in the New York Times, and it talks about how the hundreds are protesting the Jehovah's Witness Watchtower plan. I didn't get a really close-up shot, but all of these screenshots of not screenshots, but the copies of the newspapers that you see on the show today, we're going to post them all in our Glassroom discussion group so you'll be able to get a closer look. But we're going to discuss some of those today. This one, I guess our next one, this one is in, I can hardly even read that. This is actually an advertisement. Do you guys know in the section where it has like, health and, you can buy stuff and that sort of thing? I thought this was kind of neat because I found this here. It is an advertisement for a ex-Jehovah's Witness group. I thought that was kind of cool. That they used to meet up not only like in person. This is actually taken from a paper in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in 1997.
That's so great.
Isn't it cool that they were in
that makes me so happy
that they were meeting back then? Yeah, I know, right?
It makes me so happy. They were not lonely, and imagine back then they didn't have the internet. Like, it must have been so ridiculously terrifying to wake up like before the internet age.
Right.
Like, even if you don't reach out to ExJWs, you can reach out to others, and that's such an ease on our generation or this time of existence in human history, that making connections never has it ever been easier. Like, imagine, would any of us be sitting here together without the internet? No way.
Well, for me, I have to say I was one of those Jehovah's Witnesses that didn't have a connection to the internet. I mean, I had internet, but I didn't know that the ex-Jehovah's Witness there was any. First of all, I didn't even know it was a thing called an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I just thought in my mind to say somebody was an ex-Jehovah's Witness, I'm like, what are you talking about? Because it didn't register to me that it was a such thing. And so then on top of, I think what I got into the group because I was actually, there was back when I went online, when I finally went online, because it was just me for a while, y'all. I was lonely. I didn't have anybody to connect to or didn't know that it was even a ex-Jehovah's Witness groups. But I connected through a old school message board. I hate to say this, but Eric Wilson had a message board that he was using before he went online and got Facebook groups. And it was like one of those this really plain looking discussion boards. And I remember when he kicked that off, and I was okay with registering with that because I felt like, I wanted to keep my identity super secret, and I thought it was just so top secret that I was researching the Watchtower, and I didn't want people to know who I was online and stuff like that. And that I'm not making light of it because you do want to be careful, but at the same time, I made extra precautions on. I mean, you don't have. Nobody was looking for me that bad. I mean, I was not like a super spy or something like that. But yeah, so we had our own aliases. As a matter of fact, for those who's watching, my name was God's Word is Truth. So yeah, God's Word is Truth on that board. And then I discovered a Facebook presence in 2000. Well, actually, whenever my profile started, like 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
And then I got in my first Facebook group. It was activist that's well known in the Ex-Jehovah Witness Christian community. Her name is Sally Peterson. I think I was in one of her first groups. So yeah. Now everybody can connect with groups and stuff right away or even know that they exist. But even now, and we have technology, I just think that we live in a bubble. Because when somebody said, ex-Jehovah, I'm like, an ex what? You can't be an ex-Jehovah Witness. Either you're a Jehovah's Witness or you're not. There's no such thing as you just an ex-member. That's how I thought back in the day. So yeah, I thought that was really cool that they with the extra step to put the ad in. Sharon, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I can relate to what you're saying. When I first left, with my 4 kids, I had went into hiding, in the domestic violence program at first. And when I got out and the elders made sure I lost my job, 2 of my jobs and stuff like that, I couldn't understand what was happening to me. And I certainly had no idea that there were other people out there like me and my children. And so, yeah, it wasn't until, let me think for a second. It wasn't until a neighbor said, hey, well, we'll get into that on another show. But anyways, a neighbor said, hey, look at my phone, and he was like, look at this, there's an ex-Jehovah's Witness on YouTube. Well, he was one of the first ones on YouTube. I won't say his name. I'll save that for another show. But anyways, I was so enthralled. I was just like laying on the carpet watching this video, like my jaw could just drop, and then later there was another, one of my children's counselors called me and said there was going to be a TV show with an ex-Jehovah's Witness on it talking about the cult that she came from. And I can mention that later too. But I'll just go ahead and mention hers. And that was Brenda Lee. She wrote Out of the Cocoon. And that was just a thrilling moment for me when I realized we weren't alone. But then I learned I had to go through the Job and Family Services. They had a free program and I learned how to use a computer because my husband wouldn't let us have a computer in the home. I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone either. They were considered worldly. And so, I got a cell phone. I learned how to use a computer. I got online. I learned about Facebook. And then that's when the whole world just like opened up to me. And I'm just like, oh my God. But like you, Spencer, I also had an alias, but I had a good reason because I had, a stalker.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. And I was afraid of losing all of my contact with my grandmother. And if my relatives found out that I was, involved in this apostate stuff,
exactly.
I was so afraid. But yeah, the internet really opened things up to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then for me, at some point I was using my Facebook account, but the sex abuse cases was coming out. And I will run across I think I ran across one article one time and I posted it. And all of my friends in the congregation, all of my family was just going ballistic on the post. And then I made another post questioning about the sex abuse again, because I just couldn't let it go. And I didn't think it was a big deal for me to just talk about that because I say that because I had been away for a little while. Like I had kind of not faced, I just hadn't been attending. And so I wasn't around them. And sometimes y'all might attest to this. If you haven't been around a witness for a while, you lose the board language, you lose the way of thinking a little bit. So they kind of, as a matter of fact, they might even look at you like, oh, she's spiritually weak or she's girly or whatever, you know, like she need to go back to the meeting. So I was in that kind of like layover. And yeah, so they would attack me. And I don't know. Nobody didn't have to tell me, but I instinctively knew at that point that I just needed to make another profile. You know what I'm saying? And because it was, and I say nobody had to tell me because I didn't have if I would have been in these groups, they probably would have told me, you need to make another profile. And on top of that, they probably would have said, I mean, just the advice that I see, they would have told me about maybe using a masker like VPN and stuff like that to be able to help me navigate the internet or whatever, but I didn't know. And some of the things that I was saying, even though I did end up getting dissed for being an apostate, I would have got dissed a lot sooner. I just didn't know. I'm just asking a question. They're like, oh no, you're not asking a question. You're questioning the governing body. I'm like, what? This is crazy. Yeah. So yeah. So if anybody watching, we did an episode on physically in, mentally out, and a bunch of other acronyms. So if you need some advice on being a PMO and how to safely navigate as you research, we'll go ahead and link that in the description also below, because we gave a little pointers about all of us had different experiences, you know, in that. So
yeah, I'm sorry that I keep looking onto the side. It's just I don't want the kids on my bed.
Aww.
So I'm just like,
they want to be on mommy's bed though. No, I'm joking.
They do.
So the next newspaper clipping that we have here, I'm sorry, where did we leave off at? It's here. This one is from, let's see, 1, 2. This one is from the Gazette in Cedar Rapids, Ohio, I think. Is Cedar Rapids in Ohio? No, this is from the Tampa Tribune. I'm sorry, y'all. This is from the Tampa Tribune in 1980 or 1990 rather. And this is a closer look. It says ex-witness planned meeting today in Brandon.
Woo.
Emma, I think you got a chance to look over that for us, or?
Yeah, I found this really interesting that they're arranging a group to meet together, those that had left and no longer believed, obviously, what the witnesses did anymore. And they did a statewide meeting, and they were called Witnesses Free in Christ. And they met up at a Baptist church, and it was sponsored by Christian Witness Outreach Ministry. And the group had 300 chapters around the country. And they said that their main group purpose was to help former Jehovah's Witnesses adjust to leaving the denomination. So that's kind of like what we use our Facebook groups for now. And they just did like the early version, which I find that really interesting.
Yay, thank you, Emma. That is interesting because I have a group too. I have a little Ex-Jehovah Witness group. I also have a Jehovah's Witness group. That one gives me a run for my money managing that group. But I'm trying to tell you.
Tell me about it.
I'm trying to tell you.
I would not be able to do that, girl.
All right. It's a mess, believe me. So the next article that we have is let's see. First of all, former Jehovah's Witnesses lament family breakups. This one was in the Cedar Rapids Gazette, and it was in 1988. And here's like a little closer look at it. And PJ Amber went over that for us.
Yeah, I liked how this article brought out that it talks about 3 different women who were doing activism, and they were doing different kinds of activism. Debbie Klein, she was in the Cedar Rapids area, and she had reached out to others with a telephone hotline called Christian Love, and it has the number in the article for people to get in touch with her so that she could help them out. And then Joan Brandt, she was in Nebraska, says that she disassociated herself in December after 6 years being a witness. So she had been studied with, and she had 3 sons, age 14, 11, and 9. She studied with the witnesses and then joined the witnesses later on. And then 6 years later, she eventually learned about some things that she just didn't agree with, said that she compared Bible passages to those that were stories explained in the Watchtower, and it just wasn't adding up for her. And then you have Marcia Evans, who was also in Nebraska. Said she had been out of the Jehovah's Witnesses for 4 years, but she couldn't get away from the sect entirely because the oldest of her 5 children had decided to stay a Jehovah's Witness and shun her. And she went on to discuss how the breakup of her family affected her other children, herself, her husband, and just it highlighted the different ways that the cult had affected these women and the ways that they were reaching out to help others.
Thank you, PJ. And we still do a lot of that today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm in a private message, whether it's a Jehovah's Witness or ex-Jehovah Witness, late nights, or they reach out and these are long chat threads, or me personally, I've had to talk a few off the edge, which was kind of scary. You'll be surprised, Emma. You have groups, so that you could tell it, like some of the scariest PMs I've got. Even there have been some from Jehovah's Witnesses, not threatening suicide. So
it really does affect people. Like, I've had people tell me that my group has literally saved their life, and that's just like, wow. And it just shows that it does affect a lot of people that way.
Yeah.
And then our next clip, or newspaper article rather. Let me get to it. It is it this one here? Yes, this one here is former Jehovah's Witness talks of life ruled by fear. I tried to get a little close up of it. You have to, I'm sorry, with these clips. He talks about being disfellowship, but Sharon's going to go over that for us.
Yeah, this one touched close to home for me. The first woman that I'm going to mention that was mentioned in the article was Grace Guff. I think that's how you pronounce it. And at that time, there were only 4 million Jehovah's Witnesses. And now I guess they're saying there's about 8 million, possibly. They claim.
Right.
Anyways, so Grace was a Jehovah's Witness for 25 years. And she actually was disfellowshipped because she didn't believe in the 1914 prediction. And so in 1989, she was invited to Pennsylvania to attend an ex-Jehovah's Witness conference. And there were 400 in attendance. I'm pretty sure that was the Witnesses Now for Jesus conference, although it didn't mention the name of it. And so anyways, she became active as an ex-Jehovah's Witness activist and started sharing literature that she would get her hands on. At that time, there was a video called Witnesses of Jehovah, and she showed that at the St. Peter's Lutheran Church in her area. And the article says that they could barely take their eyes off of the screen, the people that were watching it. So then the article went on to talk about another female ex-Jehovah's Witness named Carol Siliker. And now Carol became a Jehovah's Witness as a result of being in an abusive marriage. So her husband was abusive. She had children. She wasn't sure what to do. So one day she prayed to God, and then like 2 days later, the Jehovah's Witnesses showed up at her door, and so she thought God had answered her prayer. And that's where I could relate to that, because I was in an unhappy early marriage, actually to an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I was just studying. And it was abusive, but I didn't realize that at the time. And I had 2 young children. And I prayed early one morning, and that God would send somebody to study with me. And the next day, it was the next day, Jehovah's Witnesses showed up at my door. So of course I thought, oh God, you answered my prayer. Anyways, so this back to Carol. So Carol was only a Jehovah's Witness for 7 years. And the comments that she made in there was that when they kicked her out, she really felt like committing suicide. It was worse than losing her husband that she lost in death. Her husband died, and she felt bad for even saying that. But that's how much trauma shunning causes. And so then she also said that she regrets that she joined Jehovah's Witnesses when her children were young, because after being disfellowshipped, one of her daughters and her grandchildren won't even speak to her. So she's experiencing, as an elderly person, the bluntness of shunning. And one last thing, they mentioned in this article, Carol mentioned that she had come into contact with an organization called the Good News Defenders. And when I looked that up, it actually took me to something called the Berean Call. So I'm not familiar with either one of these, but there was a recent post in March from the Berean Call. And evidently the guy that made this post in conjunction with the latest things that are going on with the coronavirus, he mentioned that he wrote a book in the 1980s, I believe. So anyways, it was just kind of interesting that I've never heard of these two groups before. And it's like, wow, like I'm really glad we're doing this show, because it really opened my eyes that, sometimes we think, oh, I came along and I've just taken the bull by the horns as far as activism goes. And we actually have an activist in England, from England, who is actually in Europe now, who feels that he is the best representative for Jehovah's or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, which, we understand he's a little delusional. But anyways, so yeah, there were a lot of people before us.
Yes. You are absolutely correct, Sharon. There are a lot of people before us, and we want to pay nod to each other for activism, because just going off what Sharon's saying, I'm just gonna say this. Activism takes on many forms, and us making YouTube videos and reaching out to other people, and all of that is a part of that. Mm-hmm. But sitting and just solely making YouTube videos and giving talks to people, how much of that is activism if you're not reaching out and doing other things? And I'm not saying that it's not a big important part, but it's other things to just being a YouTube star in the Ex-Jehovah Witness community. I mean, are you reaching? Is your audience going outside of the Ex-Jehovah Witnesses that adore you? Are you reaching out to the Jehovah's Witnesses? Those are the ones that are trying to get out of the watchtower. That's who you're trying to bring down the tower for, I would imagine. So a lot of times we can get in our little feelings and we can think a little bit much of ourselves and not think about the activists who came before us, the ones that we're shouldering those responsibilities to us. Because I'm gonna keep it real, there's a lot of activists out here who are on late night phone calls with people, talking them down from the edge, or in these Jehovah's Witness groups, listening to them talk about how they want to leave, or getting Ex-Jehovah Witness meetups together, or making maps. I know a Ex-Jehovah Witness woman who made a map to try to connect everybody. You can just put your name on this map, and if you need someone to partner with or talk to, you can find witnesses in your area. You know, there's a lot of different forms of activism besides making videos for YouTube.
And everything we're reading today, it's all physical contact. It's all there, like face to face.
Right.
I'd like to mention two of the people that I know. I don't know if this is the woman you're referring to, but Julie McCallan, is that who you're referring to?
Yes, who made the map?
Yeah, Julie McCallan. And then there's also over in Poland, there's Robert Dworek, who's kind of taken a semi-break from activism right now, but he also created one of those maps and followed up on that. He's a really awesome guy.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to get in the trenches and deal with real people.
Yeah,
you know, it's not enough to just like we were sitting at the hall, just sitting in the audience and listen to you talk.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Molly, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I totally see why YouTube videos are a good way. I make YouTube videos. I think we all make YouTube videos because, let's be real, some of the waking up process is deprogramming, and deprogramming can, like for me at least, it happened through research, and for people with attention deficit problems or stuff like that, for them the best way to deal with this is watch videos debunking this information that they put out there. And also another thing and he's not an ex-Jehovah's Witness, but I love that he says that, and he reminds people that is why he does YouTube videos, not for the fame, is that Mr. Atheist tends to say that I don't make YouTube videos to like hate on these people who I'm reacting to. I'm making these videos because I want fundamentalists to be challenged. I want to be a force that I'm on their heel, and they know that, and they do know that he's on there, like he's watching that channel, and they know that because sometimes in videos that they know that's gonna get a reaction out of him, they even mention him like, "Hi, Mr. Atheist, we expect a response from you," and he wants to challenge them, and that's my point in making YouTube videos too. And we're actually cooking up something saucy with Spencer right now. Get ready, ladies.
All right, y'all gonna miss that one.
And basically, what I'm saying with this is that YouTube videos are also a very great form of activism, in my opinion, just to cut off the harmful information that Watchtower spews out there. So that when they Google Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't see the JW.org videos, but they see Telltale, they see Mr. Atheist, they see Molly, they see Spencer, they see whoever, they see the activists rather than
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. And the thing is that, but it's not the sole thing of activism.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not gonna put any names out there, but activists who cannot even be bothered to talk to their subscribers or complain about it openly online. I mean, do you only want to just make YouTube videos? You don't want to actually reach out to your audience. You don't want to connect to your audience. So, I mean, it's something we all have to be mindful of because, I mean, we're all in the same. Go ahead, Molly. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I mean, when you actually want to help people and they reach out to you, you cannot call it drama. You cannot make it look like it's a burden on you. You need to keep in mind that these people, we're all damaged. I am damaged. I have oh my god, I can't speak. Religious trauma syndrome. I have anxiety. I have depression. I can barely leave the house because I just get so overwhelmed by being surrounded by people and loud stuff and everything coming at me at once. So you cannot make it look like interacting with people is a burden to you. If you actually want to be an active helper in the community, you need to, I'm not saying be available 24/7 and stoop down to every little petty thing anyone has to say to you. Of course not, because that's also not feasible. You need to find the balance and kind of filter out the worthy causes, the worthy people, those who actually need help, and those who actually just want to get a reaction out of you and want to just pick bones with you and interact in petty, like, yeah, stuff like that. So you need to be mindful of who you let in and who you devote extended periods of time to, but also you can't make people feel like they are drama and they are burden and oh, it's so stressful. Of course it's stressful, but then what are you doing, boo? If you don't want to, if you want the guts, like if you want the glory, you gotta have the guts too.
Right.
Like you gotta get your hands dirty.
That's a really good point, because activism can be stressful. I mean, when it is stressful, I take a break. I didn't do that before, but it's important to take a self-care break, because to Molly's point, there are some people that's just drama for no reason.
Mm.
I mean, but that's in Ex-Jehovah Witness world. That's just people, period. People are people, whether the Ex-Jehovah Witnesses or not. And sometimes you just don't have that to give. You don't have it to give.
Yeah.
You can't give what you don't have. So
it's the same with
self-care is
like,
important. Go ahead, Emma.
Sometimes some of us activists as well, like I've got anxiety and I do physical activism and I push myself to do that and it drains you. So you do have to have time off. You can't do it. You can't do it 100% full time.
Yeah, and never mind the fact that it takes a lot of, not just the physical act of going there. Like I plan to go to battle and all that. Like it's not just the I need to book tickets, I need to organize this, I need to book that, I need to It's not just that part. It requires brain capacity, a lot of brain capacity, so that you don't look like an idiot and make a complete fool of yourself, because obviously you don't want to do that. You want to appear ready. You want to appear, I'm not gonna say bullshit like fearless, and you want to appear like whatever like that. No, that's bullshit. You're gonna be nervous, you're gonna be excited, you're gonna be a bit irritated, tired and angry, and sometimes unfortunately it's gonna show. That's okay.
And
We're
a lot of us activists, we put in long hours. I mean, it doesn't just shut off. I mean, like it doesn't shut off.
I have a full-time job, and I try to do at least one solo video. We have the glass table, and let me tell you, the like sound checks, the research, the everything we do, it takes a lot of time. And well, some of us just can't allow to be working from home all the time and being IT guys who just need to put in like 4 to 5 hours a week and get big money, and then just go spend 10 hours a day on YouTube videos, because some people just need to get paid.
Right. Okay, so our next article actually is, oh no, not this one here. Actually, it's this one here. It is from, before I move on, the article that Sharon was talking was from the starpress.com. I'll link the article below. You are speaking from a article in the Nevada Reno Gazette Journal. It's in a 90s article. And Molly, you're gonna show us that we're not the only ones who picket and protest.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, this article describes a gathering of protesters outside outside an assembly of 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses about shunning, basically. And they were describing their experiences to the press, of course, and they asked Jehovah's Witnesses, elders, I believe, they call them leaders in this article, so I'm not exactly sure who they asked. I will assume that it's either someone from the governing body or an elder they met there. And basically, this leader claimed that the shunning policy was to prevent non-witnesses from indoctrinating Jehovah's Witnesses with opposing views and opposing teachings. And they also said that actually we don't encourage blood family to be broken up about like we don't encourage shunning, and we follow Jesus's rules in which the matters of spirituality are not to be discussed, basically, and that we never encourage people to stop talking to family, but basically we all know that shunning is shunning, and some Jehovah's Witnesses actually take it to heart that they only don't interact about like religion, but will interact with family otherwise. But most congregations actually completely disencourage contact with family members, and I've seen it happen in a congregation that the elder himself disfellowshipped his own kid, and they just cut her off money, cut her off food. She still was allowed to live in her room up the attic, but basically they didn't speak. So I don't know how that is not discouraging people from talking to one another, but maybe that's just me.
All right, thank you, Molly. Thank you, Molly. And our next newspaper article, which I'm trying to bring up now, will be presented by our very own Chessa. Where is it? All right, is it this one? It's this one here. I didn't get a close up of this here because it was almost impossible. It was a huge article. But Chessa is going to go ahead and give us, streamline all this information for us because it's more than one article, right, Chessa?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm so tired.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yes, this was actually fascinating to me because both articles were done by the same reporter, and I want to give her a shout out here. She was Tracy Swigart. And so the first article is actually for pro-Jehovah's Witnesses, and they interview Jehovah's Witnesses about whether or not to go to college. And it kind of highlights educational discrimination and how far back it goes, because people are fighting all the way back in this day to talk about educational discrimination. So I found a couple things interesting in here. They also went into the background of the society as it was built. And they talk about how they try to apply everyday Bible knowledge in all the decisions they make, so including education. And they interviewed two students here, and one of them was, her last name was Bugs, and she said the decision to go to college was difficult, but Bethel needs a lot more people familiar with computers so I could help. And she ended up going for networking. And then it also went into how at the end they talk about someone who got baptized, and she said, this is no fly-by-night religion. It wasn't as strict as I thought it was. I was impressed. I saw that it was the truth. So we can see that the organization was trying to do fluff PR here, obviously, in their favor. But the next article is called Teachings Don't Jibe, Ex-Members Say. And so they go into asking people who are former members about what they went through. Steve Davis, who was an elder, said, "We are not a cult. We don't follow a single person. There's nothing Jehovah's Witnesses do that are secret. Our meetings are all open, but no collections are taken." That's what the witnesses say. But he ended up saying, sorry, I missed it. He was a scholar, a Bible scholar, and he said their mistranslations are specific translations. There are some doctrines where Jehovah's Witnesses differ from historical Christianity. Their teachings are cultic, and the mind control is exceptionally cultic. So they were even highlighting back then how Jehovah's Witnesses mistranslate specific scriptures to affect their members in a psychological manner, which I thought was profound that they mentioned that all the way back then. And then there was Carol and Bob. They asked for their names to be changed, but they went into their story and how they experienced being shunned. So they covered shunning. And then also they talk about a group that was formed in Tampa in 1989 called Christian Witnesses Outreach. Has anybody heard of that? I hadn't heard of it before, but I thought Sharon had heard of it before. And then they also go into the blood transfusion issue, and they also talk about the Setners.
Were you asking Sharon? I had you on a full screen.
Gotcha. Yes. So, had you heard of that one before, Sharon?
I think your mic is muted.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Had you heard of that one?
That doesn't ring a bell, but I mean, unless it's the same thing as BRCI conference,
have you heard of the Setners?
I haven't heard of Christian Witnesses Outreach. No.
Have you heard of the Setners?
Yeah, the Setners. She started Witnesses Now for Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
Joan Setner.
They were also in this article too, which is super cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they ended up talking about blood transfusion policies. They really covered everything in this article as far as what's wrong with Jehovah's Witnesses except for the sexual abuse. So, I mean, I love that they brought out both points and kind of gave this a fair go. I think it was really illuminating, and I really liked the way the reporter framed this article. I think everybody should read it. It's a really good narrative.
There is. I actually, a year ago, I traveled to Sacramento. I was a guest speaker in Sacramento for the Witnesses Now for Jesus conference. And one of the speakers I was just amazed by, and she goes way back. And her name is Andrea Bergen. I think that's how you pronounce it, Bergin. And to listen to her narrative about, her experience as a Jehovah's Witness and how she became an ex-Jehovah's Witness, how she found Christianity. And I'm not promoting Christianity or atheism or anything. I really am indifferent to any of it. But anyways, out of respect for her, she is an awesome person and her experience was great. As a matter of fact, if you were to look up Witnesses Now for Jesus on YouTube and you Google or look up, let me see, it would be 2019, their conference. She tells her story, and that's the same one that I sat and listened to. It's just amazing what some of these older activists have done.
It's funny because somebody reached out to me about her the other day. They said I should get into contact with her, and I remembered that Sharon, you had went to that conference. So she's obviously been doing this a long time. A lot of people know her. She's done good work.
She's a really, really, really sweet person. Really good person.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Go ahead.
So is somebody else going to touch on the BRCI conference, or should I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay, so when I first got into activism, I would say I was about, 2008, 9, 10. I was about 1.5 to 2 years into activism at the time. And I had traveled to Chicago. I spoke there. And then at some point, I had heard about the BRCI conference. That's an acronym for something. I forget what it stands for. And it was similar to Witnesses Now for Jesus in that respect. And they had their conference at a hotel in Chicago, and I was invited to go to it, but I was raising 4 kids on my own and helping with 3 different states in my area, including the one I lived in. And so I really couldn't afford to attend it. But then I got word that it was actually going to fold. And so I was really like disappointed, because they reached a lot of people. One of the things BRCI conference did was there was an older woman that was a counselor, and you could actually call in and talk to her she would talk to you about what you're going through. She would also talk with people about the history of Jehovah's Witnesses and educate people that were newbies just recently leaving. And then they would have their conference with guest speakers. Well, a lot of these people were older. They had been doing it, I don't know for how long. They've been doing it for some time. So somebody told me that the BRCI conference was about to fold because the people were aging out. They were retiring from it. And it was suggested, I forget who told me, it was suggested to me that because I was, new, I was a real go-getter. Maybe I should take it over. Well, I wasn't even sure what I thought about religion at the time. And I was like, well, I couldn't do that. I can't go up and talk about, the Bible and my new belief because I didn't have one. And they're like, that's fine. They just didn't want it to fold. Well, it was just, I would have had to relocate my children. That's what I was thinking. And it was just too much. And so I didn't, it folded. And, in the back of your mind, you kind of, because you love, you just, as an activist, you just love the people so much. You kind of like, oh, I wish I could have done more. I wish I would have said yes, but, we have to be realistic. We're human. We're not superwoman. We're not Superman. We're not superhuman. And the thing that I like to say is that it takes many raindrops to fill a bucket. And that's what we all are. We're throughout history of the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, we are each a raindrop that fills the bucket.
That's a really good analogy. Because then at that point you realize that not only are you important, but you were part of something larger. It's not just you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely not a competition. And I think it's some of the top activists tend to forget that it's not a competition. It's not like I'm the number 1 apostate, I'm the number 1 this, I'm the number 1 ExJW. Like, and why do you want to be the number 1 apostate so bad? Like, what does it do?
This is why. I'm trying to get my fingers in the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Money, like, yes. Dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills. I just want to say I want to say at this juncture, you guys, that you can also comment or ask questions or say anything about the program or even comment on the program by joining us by clicking the StreamYard link in the comments. If you notice, when you click the link, it will take you backstage, and we will we'll chat with you privately as you come on and let you know when we're going to let you go on the show. You don't have to come in showing your face or a video. So if you're a PMO or just somebody just plain don't want to show your identity, there is an audio function only. And if you don't want to join us on the show, you're more than welcome to drop comments in the below or on YouTube or on Facebook, because we're streaming live in both places. Before we move on, we have one other person presenting. news article, and that would be yours truly. The one that I had, I thought was pretty fascinating because it was a. Can you guys hear me really good?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to just be rambling. I can't hear me now. So the one that I had was a duo. It was a father and son couple who, not couple, but father and a couple, not a couple, but a father and son, but a couple of ex-Jehovah Witnesses who were disfellowshipped together. Let me see if I can bring up the. Did I bring up the news article? I can't remember. Here's a picture of them right there. Let me take this banner up so y'all can really see it here. Sorry. See? This is in the Arizona Republic in a 1987 May edition of this paper. And I just thought they were just phenomenal. I don't know if you can see me. I'm right here. There is the article here. It's here. And again, we're going to put these articles in our Glassroom discussion group so you'll be able to see them closer. But what I loved about this, and let me try to get a different copy so that I can read it a little better, because even I am having trouble reading this on the screen. But anyway, they spoke out about the fact that a Jehovah's Witness was disfellowship for playing bingo with senior citizens. Now, I did not know Jehovah's Witnesses can be disfellowship for bingo, but apparently that is what happened. And also, they also spoke out about witnesses being disfellowship for joining self-help groups, such as Alcoholic Anonymous, because they're viewed as a false religion. Now, I did kind of know, because my father suffered from addiction, and he was not given options to go to get to help. As a matter of fact, he was discouraged because they felt like the organizations or the people who offer help for recovery for his addiction were religiously inclined. And in any case, what was fascinating about this was that they launched a support group for former Jehovah's Witnesses. They even put the address here. One of the witnesses commented that they knew personally of 3 Jehovah's Witnesses who committed suicide. So it seems like there's a running theme that in some of our articles that witnesses speak out against suicide. But what I found most interesting was that they quoted that there were, at the time of print, that there were 25 to 35 lawsuits pending against the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were filed by ex-members, and that most of them claimed defamation of character, mental anguish, or restraint of trade, which I have to look up restraint of trade. I'm not really sure what that means there, but that should be an interesting project here. But it also talks about, they also were quoted as saying that they really had no idea how many lawsuits were taking place at that time because there was nothing published to their knowledge. Which made me think about today how hard it is to know how many lawsuits that the Watchtower actually has. Like, we have the benefit of having the internet. They didn't have that back then, so we can look at public records a lot faster, and we can connect with each other a lot faster, because the apostates then more than likely could only connect with each other locally. Or with the internet, we can connect with each other globally, much like you see on the glass table today. We are all from different parts of the world. But anyway, there was also a lawsuit for shunning, I guess, because of the disfellowshipping arrangement. But I thought that this was really interesting that, you hardly ever see family leave the Jehovah's Witnesses together. And not only did they leave, they were apostates. And not only were they apostate, like an apostate duo, but they started a support group. So they were actively in activism, and they were featured in the newspaper, another medium in which we use today to try to get the word out about the harmful practices of the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I thought that was interesting. And again, we're going to link all these newspapers in the Glassroom discussion room below so that you guys can look at them, and you should be able to have like a viewfinder to be able to look at the articles and kind of zoom in on them, because we were all able to zoom in on them, right?
Yeah.
To be able to look at them.
Yeah. Actually, about the AA and the 12 steps, I believe that JWs are not allowed to attend or ask for that kind of help, is because AA and the 12 steps are notoriously based in Catholicism. So guess they don't want that to clash. And as a recovered addict, Telltale has a video about about the 12 steps and better alternatives, and he actually has a degree in the psychology of addiction. So he's, I believe, as an addict himself and with a psychology degree specifically for addiction, I think he's a quasi reliable source to go by. So yeah, that's why they cannot take the 12 steps, because it's the wrong kind of God.
Well, okay, so I'm sorry, Sharon. I think you're on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, we actually do have it's not a professional, we don't have like counselors, like drug and alcohol counselors, but it's more of a peer support group online. Dwayne MacArthur runs that. And also Rick Bear helps with that, I believe. But anyways, there is help out there for those that have addiction. If they still have the JW mindset that they don't want to go to AA or NA, there is a Facebook group, and it's I can't think of the name of it. It's like Ex-Jehovah's Witness recovery, addiction recovery group. But anyways, Dwayne MacArthur runs that.
I'm sorry. Again, I'm just talking and talking and talking. Reach out to Sharon Tyson-Tovar. She can connect you with Dwayne's group if you are, because there are a lot of us who are recovering addicts and recovering and or have addictions, or even if you're thinking about or if you're on the edge, or if you're thinking about it, don't think that you're alone. There's many of us who have gone through that, and we'd be more than happy to connect you with the resources that we can. And actually, Chessa, I think you touched on it. You touched on this a little bit in your lives about recovery, and I think you're on mute though. Are you on mute?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us are coming out of a really bad place when we leave. We've all been abused. We're all in trauma, and we really have a very difficult mental dynamic going on, no matter what situation we come from. And I just wanted to say to Sharon, thank you so much, because when I entered all of this, I mean, I knew it was going to be difficult. I had been a pioneer, so I had talked to people when I was still a witness, and when they were on the edge then. But I didn't really know how to connect people with mental health resources. I didn't know how to find therapists and be able to have a discussion with them in a way where I could get them on a resources list. I didn't even know that kind of stuff existed. If a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Jehovah's Witness was homeless, I was at a loss. And Sharon, you were the person who really educated me in that. And you have such a vast experience. I mean, people all over the world. I was blown away. Like, anytime I have a serious issue like that where someone needs help, I know I can call you. And that is a rare trait, my friend. So I just want to say, as we pay honors to the people who have been here for so long, I mean, always look to your betters, even though you may not agree with them. It's always better to have connection to the people from the past who have all this vast experience to do things the right way. The main point of activism is fighting for human rights. So you have to fight for human rights in the best way you can, with accountability and strength and character. And Sharon is one of the people that I really admire for that. All of you ladies, of course, but.
Thank you. And I'd like to give props to Emma too, because Emma, as far as I know, has the first and the main, maybe the only group that provides links and supportive services, not only through Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses Unite, which blows me away, but also she has another Facebook group just for people that are homeless, people that are jobless, or just simply want to relocate to get away from the shunning or the abuse that they're going through. And I mean, and Emma has never once asked for a dime from anybody. Like, I don't want to get emotional here, but you know, I do. I really appreciate Emma in what she has
you're
done.
making me tear up. I'm like, oh, thank you. It means a lot. It really means a lot.
She's just always trying to help people, and she doesn't try to make a name for herself. And I mean, she's just, but she's so appreciated and valued by so many. So
we love Emma.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Emma. You are awesome.
Emma is an actual superhero, y'all.
Stop it! You're gonna make me cry here.
In real life. In real life, y'all.
Yeah.
In real life.
Screw DC and Marvel. We have our Emma.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Woo! So it's been one of them kind of nights already, y'all. Okay, so we are entering the question answer, say what you want kind of section. So if you guys are wanting to get on the line, I thought we had somebody on the line. Hang on one second. I'll have to check. If you have questions, comments, concerns, this is the time to let us know. We do have somebody on the line. Let me see if I know this person. Do I know this person? We'll see if I know this person. I am going to... Yo!
Hey.
Hi, STZ.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Let me see. Do I know him? I don't know. He may have gave me two beautiful children. This is my husband, y'all.
How you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear
I
you.
hear you good.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, just want to come on and say I really enjoyed the show today. All the old articles, like you say, sometimes you can really forget that there have been people who have come before us who have done this. A lot of the articles that we read when we were transitioning out of the organization had to be put up there from somebody. Somebody had to do the research. It's probably a lot more easier for us today because we have the aid of the internet. Like for me coming up and me waking up, I mean, I had the internet, and that was a huge thing. I couldn't imagine having to go through the same hurdles without that as help, without someone linking together countless times that the watchtower was wrong, countless times that they changed their stance on things. Without somebody doing that for me, it would have been almost impossible. So I am grateful for them. I'm also looking forward to the future so that I in turn can do this for somebody else. I mean, it may not be to the extent or to the level that those first original apostates did, but looking forward, I know that I can leave a mark behind, even if I'm not necessarily pulling people out the organization one by one. Sometimes just sharing how I got over something, sharing a trial that I faced that turned into a triumph. Anyway, it was really encouraging.
While I have you here, this is actually, we're going to talk more in depth about this next week. But I'm putting you on the spot. I hope you can remember this. Do you remember telling me that you used to be in tech forums and that some people would post Kim and Mikey's videos and you would, that's how the first time you became exposed for like apostate video?
Yeah.
But you was actually going there because the Watchtower forbade us from using tech, but you was kind of like in this underground little club, right? Can you tell us about that a little bit?
I don't know, just in that moment of waking up where you're like, okay, I'm at the point now, everything they told me not to do, I'm gonna do. So it was just, they were really the first apostates that I'm gonna say air quotes, apostates that I came across. And they didn't appear like apostates. Like they weren't the angry finger wagging ones that were saying, to hell with the witnesses. And, they weren't that type. They were kind. They were they were still married. You know, they hadn't given themselves over to, you know, wayward ways. Like, you know, the witnesses say what happened after you left the organization. So for me, that was a great experience. I mean, I did come across some who were obviously damaged and had trauma after leaving the witnesses. But I mean, I think, yeah, Mike and what was the name?
Kim.
Yeah. Those were the
Kim.
first ones I actually had experience in seeing. And it's sad that, like, I don't think they make videos now, or
They do actually.
Oh, they are,
do.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I thought they had stopped for a second.
They've been doing it a long time, because when you was looking in the forum, that was about 10 years or 15 years ago, right?
Oh my.
They did take a break recently, and then they just, because they were deciding what they were going to do, and thankfully for a lot of their fans, they came back.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're an awesome resource.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Simon.
Thanks for
you
having
so
me.
much.
Keep it up. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show, ladies.
Cool.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's my honey, y'all.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Yeah, I know. That was a nice little change of place. Hey, Sharon's back. Yay. Okay, so now we're going to do our Q&A. And to kick it off, we actually had some comments that were, I guess people were kind of anticipating our little episode, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I can find those. We put a call out for old activists, not old activists, I'm saying old activists who were of a certain era, because I'm getting older now. I don't want nobody calling me old. Oh, in a certain era. And we had a few responses. We will begin with, is it here? Janine Alexander?
Yeah.
Emma?
This was a lady that I reached out to on, reached out to a few groups, and she replied in the VVA group. And basically, she told me that she became an Ex-Jehovah's Witness in 1979. And there was 3 of them, and they got together and decided to fight back. She lived in Seattle, and they started picketing the Kingdom Halls. And they did this for 10 years. And she said they would picket or pamphlet the Kingdom Halls, parking lots. The witnesses got violent with them and would twist their arm behind their back and drag them across the gravel. And she said it was like being back in the trenches back then picketing. We were actually, they hooked up a reader board to a trailer on the back of their car and drove it around the Kingdom Halls in the Seattle Center. And she was saying that they were a very active group. They set up meetings for ExJWs. They had recorded messages that witnesses could call in anonymously. And she said that they put a recorded message on a number on, they put the recorded message and the number on this reader board and rode it around Seattle. And they also arranged TV interviews, newspaper articles in the Seattle Times. So that's just crazy, thinking that back in 1979, people were doing this, and she did it for 10 years.
Wow.
Emma, we have, you actually have another one here, actually. You got another response from, let me see if I can put it up here. From my Angie Spencer. I love Angie, if you're watching. Here you go.
Yeah,
love you, girl.
I asked as well, can you put that back up? Because I didn't put that one on my phone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I asked if people like remembered when they were younger coming out of the conventions and seeing like people picketing, and she said that she did in Rochester in the 80s, and her dad warned her like to look away, not even look at the protesters. And I remember that myself coming out when I was younger. What are they doing over there? Don't look, don't take any of their literature. And I was kind of like, why?
I remember
What's
the
so wrong
apostate.
with, why can't we read their literature? It confused me as a child.
My father told me not to even look at the signs.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to read the signs. He's like, don't read those. I'm like, oh, let me not read the signs. I don't know what he thought would happen. Sharon, do you have something? I'm sorry. Hang on. Go ahead.
I remember when I was a young girl, and we went to Columbus, Ohio, and it was on High Street. It was at the convention center. And when we were leaving, there were apostates lined up along the sidewalk trying to talk to us, to send us a message, to tell us the truth about how it wasn't the truth. And what the brothers did was they lined up in front of the apostates and they kept talking over the apostates so that our mind, our brain was focused on what they were saying and not what was being said by the apostates. So a year ago, last summer, actually, I was in Toledo, Ohio. It was the last well, not the last protest I did, because I've done some since I've been in California, but I couldn't help myself. But I was in Toledo at another activist, a young new activist. She's amazing, and I can't think of her name at the moment. But anyways, I was at her protest, and I was standing on one side of the convention, and there was a group of like 15 men that coagulated, standing there keeping an eye on me and two other people that were walking with
Wow.
signs. So anyways, so I on the megaphone, I brought up, I remember back when I went to the convention in Columbus, Ohio, and they stood on the street and spoke over us so they couldn't hear what we had to say. And I said, I'm not trying to give you brothers any ideas or anything. And wouldn't you know that when we walked onto the other side of the building, which was a pretty long walk, at the end of the convention, they did exactly what I said on the megaphone. They came out, they lined up. I have a lot of pictures. I'm sure we're going to show those on one of our next videos. But they lined up, and there was like almost like, God, I don't know, 30 or so men standing in a row. It was just ridiculous. And they were talking over this. But the thing is, if you're going to do a protest, take a megaphone, because they can't talk over a megaphone. Let me tell you.
Make sure you have a permit. Get a permit.
And I actually borrowed that megaphone from Annette Carter Black. And so what she and I initiated was, for every protest that megaphone goes through, we write the date and the name of the protest, and we have the people sign that we're at the protest. So she's trying to fill up the megaphone. Yeah.
All right. That is really cool. That's a neat. That was really neat.
Yeah. I'm not sure about. Oh, sorry, keep on.
Oh, I just wanted to mention one more thing before the show ends. Just a couple of names of some a different generation than we came, from, a different era, like you mentioned.
Okay.
And Andreas Cole from Canada was, just a totally outspoken activist. Andrea Bergen, I mentioned her. William Bowen has done a lot for the people. And Lee Marsh she goes way back with the history of the activism. And of course, Barbara Anderson. And then we have Paul Breninge from Denmark, who wrote Judgment Day Must Wait. He goes way back. And then we have John May, who is one of my husband's favorite activists. And I just wanted to say, he was an elder in Ireland. And when he found out that Ray Franz was disfellowshipped, he actually put himself in debt by purchasing a plane ticket for him and another brother. They flew to Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
They wanted to, he knew personally some of the people on the governing body, and he wanted to talk with them about why they disfellowshipped Ray Franz and how wrong it was. And do you know that the governing body wouldn't even speak to him? They wouldn't give him the time of day. So he's another one. And then, of course, we have Martha Irwin, who a lot of people know Martha. If you actually take the time to talk to her on the phone, she can tell you about the history going back about 30 years. And then last but not least, one of the people that really had a big effect on my life and my children was Brenda Lee, who wrote Out of the Cocoon. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right, Sharon. Thank you so much. We missed another critical piece of activism, and it's taking care of each other, because we do take care of each other. I mean, as activists,
Yeah, definitely.
we go through things. We have stress. We broke. We don't have money, and I mean, we go through those periods as well. And we need to, and we take care of each other, And I think that's awesome that he was willing to fly out there and take care of friends. And we have probably so many stories of that we can share that we
Yeah,
have.
I mean, I checked some like ex-Betalites out, and I'm not naming names. Like there are multiple channels who are ex-Betalites from Volkill, from Warwick, all that. So you can check them out and find them. I think if you like search ex-Betalite, you will find their YouTube channels quite easily. I'm not naming names for a reason. Like I'm not endorsing anyone. Okay, at this point I'm like, you know what?
Okay, don't get
I'm not
Molly started.
responsible. I'm washing my hands. I'm pulling a Pontius Pilate over here. So, like, some of these ex-Battleites recount how when Battleites are let go, they don't have a profession, they don't have a career to fall back on. So they just basically, what do they do? Like, what are you gonna do with yourself once you lose your housing? Because once you're not used
Right.
for battle, what are they gonna do? They're gonna like chuck you off the street. And what are you gonna do when you lose that like minimal income and your source of food and shelter? So it's like crazy, and it must be so frigging scary for Battleites now, because they were a few like 2 years ago or so, they were letting all of like a big mess of them were being let go. I just can't even imagine how frigging scary that must have been. Just
Oh
crazy.
yeah, I remember that because it was some Bethelites that I knew that were let go, and to see some in our family, and to try to see them trying to adjust on the outside was crazy because, like you said, they don't have schooling. They've been out of the real world for so long, so that you even have to get adjusted to that. We're gonna move on to our question and answer portion.
Yeah.
Or as a matter of fact, it's not really question and answer. We're just gonna look at some of the comments here. And let's see what some of the comments that we missed here. Well, I don't think we spoke to Adrian from YouTube. Hello. Love the English.
Love the English accent, he says.
It must be Emma's accent. English?
Yeah.
I said to him, I haven't got a posh one. I'm a brummie, so.
Oh, is this your response here?
Yeah.
Judge me unforgiven. That's Emma's YouTube channel. Make sure you check her out. Then we have Linda rather. I'm butchering names. I'm sorry, guys. Linda Carmel from the UK. Hello. She says, hi from the UK. Well done on all your fantastic activists. Thank you so much here. Emma's from the UK, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have Elaine Gray. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
We have Go ahead.
I'm just looking forward to be able to move out of the house because I have so many things I want to get started, and now I feel like a fucking fool for not doing them earlier. But now anyway, COVID-19 would have screwed it all over. So you know what? Maybe Mother Nature was like,
it's not time.
Take a chill pill, girl.
Right. We got from YouTube. We have Nigel Rowley. He says, I search, find, and post news stories, information on YouTube in the form of a brief video.
Nice.
That's my small contribution. I'm not looking to make money out of this. Thank you so much, Nigel.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you, in doing this project, we had to actually subscribe and pay for articles.
Yeah.
So the work that you're doing, it is truly a service.
It is.
And a labor of love. We appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
And Nigel's been at the London protest with me, but that's part 2 next week. So yeah.
Nice.
All right. And then we have. Oh well, we know who that is already. Let's see here. This greetings from Madrid, Jose Fernandez. Thanks for watching us.
Hope you're staying safe and taking good care of yourself in these like scary times. Europe is like, we're all locking down, y'all.
Yeah, he actually mentions that. He says he sends us much encouragement in the quarantine. We have been there. They have been there for 3 weeks, and they have 3 more. So And he is
Jose's daughter actually has COVID.
Oh my God.
Oh well, our thoughts go out to you.
Yeah.
We send positive vibes your way. Believe me, we're thinking about you because there are so
Yeah.
many like in our area. We represent really various parts of the world where the cases are exploding.
Yeah.
So I definitely
Yeah.
my heart goes out to you and your daughter.
Hope she recovers soon. And
Yes.
without any damage.
Complications, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Adams says from YouTube, we love you, Emma.
That's Draven.
Oh, is it Draven? Hi, Draven. Love you, Emma. She's like, that's Draven.
Take the compliment, girl.
David joined our broadcast. He says,
He's my bestie. We speak to each other all the time. You know, it's like.
And he's one of our biggest supporters. So we thank you so much.
Yeah.
Draven.
We love Draven.
David Wickles says, thanks for joining us, David, by the way.
Yeah.
He says, great subject. Bill, am I saying the right name? How do you spell the last name? Is that Setner?
It looks like it, yeah.
And Joan Setner were pioneers of activists, OG sort.
Wow.
Bill appeared briefly in the Witnesses of Jehovah film, and Joan was different. And Joan was different forms, but since the 90s. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Speaking of which,
my mind is blown.
Speaking of which, the documentary that we showed clips earlier today. So if you are watching this and catching the end of this, when you go back, make sure you hit hashtag replay to let us know that you're watching this. Let me see if I have it here. It is probably. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me see if I have it. I will link it below, but because I'm not gonna go through all of these news articles. But I will link it below. David, the documentary that we did clips on actually was featured in a news article in the 80s or 70s. They were talking about how popular it was and how it was shown in a lot of different places. So check it out. I know we clipped it, we kind of chopped it up a little bit, but it's worth the watch. Yeah. I mean, it's old school, but it's really well done. Really well done. Let's see here. Comments. We have David again here says that Leonard, oh, I'm not gonna butcher the name, and Marjorie were also in the Witnesses of Jehovah's movie. Leonard assists Edmund Gruce, who wrote the book Monuments to False Prophecy. I've never heard of that book about Beth Serum and Beth Shannon. Now, Beth Serum was an online revelation to me because I had no idea that even happened. I don't even think I would have even connected the dots to figure out that Beth Serum it was even happening. I think they did a slight mention maybe in the Jehovah's Proclaimers book, but not enough to make me think that it was a false prophecy, of course.
Yeah, I only learned about it from I wanna say Telltale because that sounds right. That just sounds about right.
Jennifer Cook from Facebook says hello.
Hi.
Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. Oh, David got all of the old school pieces. He says, shout out to Randall Waters, formerly had freeminds.org website for a couple of decades. He was connected with Steve Hassan.
Wow.
To show how Jehovah's Witnesses fit the traits of being categorized as a cult.
Yeah, if it had not been for him, then we may have not had the connections to Stephen Hassan that we have and had, that kind of dialogue with him. I mean, Hassan has really expanded into Jehovah's Witnesses from Randall connecting with him. So, I mean, that's an awesome form of activism, is just getting connected to people and enlightening them on what's going on and having success with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead, Molly.
Honestly, it's so just overwhelmingly emotional and fills me with like a kind of, how do you even say it in English? Oh my God, I'm telling you, my language software needs an update.
Go ahead.
Like a feeling of, I want to get something done too, because they did so much for us, and had it not been for them, we would not be here. We would have had a much harder time finding resources, connecting with one another. So really, just the feeling of like thankfulness and gratefulness that I feel towards these people is just
Tremendous.
undescribable.
Yes. Janelle Schmidt says she's watching from Florida under quarantine. Love you, ladies.
Hey.
Thanks for watching. And then Anthony Wilson says, I feel really privileged to be friends with Emma. The most amazing friend anyone can ask for. Oh,
yes.
I've just read that.
Emma's is gonna
I'm gonna touch on Anthony next week and Raven, because they both helped me major with my activism, and I wouldn't be able to do as much as I do without them. So thank you to you guys too.
All right, guys. Well, that's all what we have for today. Did anybody have any final closing comments without giving away next week? No? Okay, so next, go ahead, Sharon. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think on the count of three, we should all say a big thank you to the JWs prior to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next week we will talk more in depth about current activism and our Act First Now, what we're doing in order to pave the way for future generations. And then we are going to have a special part where we actually talk about other activists who are doing the same thing. Not just us on the panel, but we want to hear from you guys. So if you guys have any stories or you want to talk about your activism, make sure you reach out to us in private message, through the Glass Table page, or any one of the ladies that you see here on the panel. We'll be able to help you. Next week, we are going to put out our times hopefully really sooner, a lot sooner this week than we did this week. We was kind of later. So you'll know in advance a lot sooner our times for this week. As a matter of fact, hopefully we can discuss it after the show, and then we can let you know when we'll be live next week. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I think that pretty much covers everything. We thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you link them in the comments below here on YouTube, on Facebook. And make sure you join the Glassroom discussion group. If you want a closer look at all of the articles that we compiled, they'll be there so that you can pour over them and look at some of the stories. And I guess that is it all from us. We thank you so much for joining us, and I guess we'll speak to you soon. If you don't meet us in the glass room, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll meet us in the glass. I keep calling it the glass room. Is it the glass room? It's the glass discussion. The glass table discussion group, people. Don't look for the glass room. There's no such thing as a glass room. Well, it might be, but we're not going to be in there. Don't go looking for the glass room. It's the glass table discussion. All right. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.